Alright, so a lot of people who watch this channel keep asking about output. When should I start speaking? What are the best techniques to practice output? And yeah, that stuff matters. You're not going to get good at speaking without proper speaking practice. But there's an important step that we need to address first, and that is reading. Alright, so when it comes to input, listening and watching seem to get all the attention. That's podcasts, anime, music, YouTube, Netflix, you name it. And listening is important, don't get me wrong, you absolutely do need it. But let's be honest about why most people default to this. Well, it's comfortable. You can do it when you're tired, you can do it when you cook, commute, scroll, whenever. It allows you to be passive. Reading, however, feels very intimidating at first. When everything is written, all the unknowns are right there in front of you on the page. You have kanji, more complex grammar patterns, and it can be quite overwhelming if you're not used to it. There's also no tone of voice, there's no facial expressions, there's no scene, there's no music. Basically, there's little to no extra cues to lean on. This means that your brain has to build the whole meaning entirely from the language itself, and that can feel like really heavy work early on. Alright, so let's say you can follow spoken Japanese just fine, but when you try to talk, you hesitate. Or maybe you drop the entire idea altogether because you realize you have no idea how to actually say it. That hesitation is usually due to low output reps, like your Japanese just isn't automatic yet. And of course, people always say, if you want to get better at speaking, then just speak more. Which is absolutely true, but if all of your input comes from listening, you can still end up with a lot of loose phrasing. Like stuff you've heard a million times, but only as little chunks here and there and not the full structure around it. So you might have amazing pitch and pronunciation, but creating entire sentences from scratch in real time still feels awkward and slow. This isn't just about not knowing the right words or enough grammar or needing to speak more. It's about not knowing the reliable patterns for linking everything together into a natural Japanese sentence. So what often happens is you end up just guessing a lot or translating directly from English in your head. And this is where reading can help. You see, reading is a different kind of input. It gives you a visual reference of the language, kind of like a mapping in a sense. Also, written Japanese, especially books, articles, and essays, tend to use more complete or explicit sentence structures. Unlike spoken Japanese, where things often get simplified and particles get omitted, everything is there. The full sentence, the kanji, the modifiers, the particles, all of it. And because it's frozen on the page, you can slow down, you can reread one sentence 5 times if you have to. You can physically trace with your finger and go, okay, so this part modifies that, and this chunk is setting up the verb, and yeah. That makes it easier to analyze, to break it down into chunks, and to really understand how ideas are built in Japanese, especially for the longer and more complex sentences. So basically, reading lets you visualize how ideas connect, and that deeper processing makes these patterns easier to remember and retrieve when you speak. Now, you might be thinking, yeah, but written Japanese and spoken Japanese are different, right? Like, isn't reading often more formal or academic? Is my Japanese going to start sounding stiff? Well, 2 things. First, reading doesn't automatically make you speak like a book. It just makes you more familiar with the underlying sentence patterns. You still need to choose the spoken version when you talk. And second, that's exactly why you want to pair reading with lots of different types of listening. Listening is great for calibrating your tone, your rhythm, pitch, and gives you plenty of examples of natural speech habits. Reading gives you proper structure and clarity. Now, obviously, you still have to actually practice speaking to get good at speaking, but consistent reading paired with lots of listening is going to make the transition from input to output so much easier. If you only focus on one aspect of the language, you get good at that one thing. If you train multiple skills, they start reinforcing each other and you improve your overall ability much faster. Okay, so what should you read? Well, start easy. If you jump into something too hard too soon, you're just gonna burn yourself out and convince yourself that reading just isn't for you or that you're not ready yet. One place you can start is Todoku.org. They've got a ton of free, super short, simple stories. We're talking just a few sentences per page, simple vocabulary, basic grammar, and the goal here isn't to challenge yourself. You're just building the habit of seeing Japanese text regularly. You're building familiarity. And the best part is most of it has furigana, so you're not staring at all this kanji being all like, okay, I have no idea what's going on here. It makes it really easy to stop and look up the meaning when you need to. And once you're past the beginner stage, like maybe you know 1,000 words and you master basic grammar, then NHK Web is a solid next step. It's real news from NHK, but rewritten in simple Japanese specifically for learners. The sentences are generally longer and more complex than greater readers, but still manageable. And the great thing about this is that you start seeing clearer logical connections between things, like the kind of structures that show up in everyday explanations and discussions. Stuff like, because of this, that happened, or experts say this, but critics argue that. And don't worry, because EasyWeb absolutely has furigana too. Also, because this is news, you can pick topics that you actually care about, like sports, tech, culture, politics, whatever. Way more engaging than reading about Tanaka-san going to the park for the 50th time. Alright, so once you get to that upper intermediate to advanced level, I highly recommend reading a mix of fiction and nonfiction books intended for native speakers. Personally, I read a ton of nonfiction books in Japanese, anything I'm interested in, from photography to business to psychology, health, and stuff like that. And honestly, reading about things you're actually interested in is just easier. First, it's more enjoyable because you're, well, interested in it. And second, you're likely already familiar with the topic. So instead of wasting all of your energy trying to figure out what is being said, you can focus on how Japanese is saying it. So in other words, don't read for new knowledge, read about the things that you already understand in your native language so you can learn how to explain them in Japanese. This helps you break away from defaulting to English framing, which is going to make your sentences feel much more natural. Plus, you'll naturally learn vocabulary that you'll actually want to use. Then there's novels. Novels are different, but just as valuable. You have dialogue, descriptions, emotions, inner thoughts, and an overall wider spread of the language. In anime and movies, you can actually see the scene, so there's no need for every little thing to be described to you. Things like the orange light from the sunset, or the wind blowing through one's hair, or the awkward glance away. But in a novel, the author has to make you mentally visualize the sunset without ever showing it to you. And they can't rely on things like color grading or an emotional soundtrack to set the mood either. They have to build the entire scene inside of your head using nothing but words. The mood, the emotion, the tension, it's all carried by the language. There's no I get it because I saw it kind of thing. And when you read a lot of that, your Japanese just naturally becomes more flexible. And over time, after many months and many years of reading, you're going to notice that you have more ways to describe things, more ways to tell a story, and a deeper ability to say exactly what you mean. Alright, so if your goal is to achieve real fluency, meaning that you can express yourself clearly in the language, then reading should definitely be a core part of your immersion routine. Spoken and written Japanese are different, and reading won't make you great at speaking all on its own, but the foundation that you build through reading, especially when you pair it with lots of listening, will directly strengthen your speaking ability. And that's the next step. Actually using the language. And if you want low pressure output methods that you can practice on your own, I've got an entire video on that in the works. So make sure you subscribe, turn on notifications, and I'll see you in the next one.